I cannot believe this. We have actually won 15 matches out of the past 16 on the last day, with a win streak of 10 as well. Okay, this is crazy. Yeah, I'll put the like individual matchups and draft in the end of the video if you're interested. Otherwise, let's head into our account review. Alright, with the end of the Pursuit season, it's about time for another account review, and this time I'm going to show you again of all the builds of all the units that I've been using this season and a bit of thoughts behind how I draft. So let's start with Huayang. Okay, we're just gonna go by the order of the elements. Okay, so Huayang, yeah, this build is actually just for fun. I think I only like pull this out like once or twice. It's because by the end of the season, I've been drafting ML Lua a lot because of how powerful she is after her buff. So a lot of people have been using Green Luluka as a counter to ML Lua. So sometimes I can just pick Huayang and one-shot that Luluka before they move by holding back Lua's S3 on turn 1. Alright, Jackal, I don't think I've drafted her, just because I haven't been cleaving this season anymore. I just don't have the speed gear to build Tomoka and Braceria, who are the best openers this season for cleave. Moving on to Ravi, as a bruiser, she is not the best in slot anymore, but against full grass teams, she still has her place, so I do draft her into cases where the enemy puts too many grass units in their teams. Otherwise, yeah, this is just a very standard Ravi build. Xiao Tie, okay, so I mainly built this to counter Fireflan, but you do need to draft her alongside openers and CR push to make her work, because Fireflan usually has a very good team of support as well. Genua, nothing special here. He's still just Genua, so basically you can't draft him into ML Ilanav. You can't draft him into a lot of like hard controls like Nock. Otherwise, he can be a good backup DPS in scenarios where some other DPS like Fireflan or BBK are banned. Speak of the devil, we have Afternoon Soak Flan here. She is definitely the most dominant and oppressive DPS this season, or in the entire game right now. Her ability to survive and her ability to pack a ton of damage without even having to take a turn is really insane. Like, this unit is actually broken. Now, since I pre-ban ML Luna all the time, I can safely first pick Afternoon Cirque Flan and support her with my other units and make her work. Okay, so ideally you don't want to draft her into ML Luna because she just disables everything. Other softer counters like Solitaria are rather easy to deal with by picking them, like you can pick them off, or you can just use stuff like ML Lua to bypass it. Alright, Narc, still the same, like, typical Narc build. You just want her to be decently fast with a ton of effectiveness, just she can get anyone without even so burning. She is especially good into slower teams where they don't have Laya or LRK. Summertime, just the cleave unit, I don't really draft her, again, because I haven't been cleaving. Now next off we have Veronica. She is actually one of the best answers to BBK. If you have been having trouble to deal with BBK, you should definitely have her built. She can just take the turn right away, like after like one enemy or at one ally, at the speed with that 50% push. And then you can just get her up and you can stun lock BBK for a turn. And the best part is, you follow up with more damage onto BBK to proc her passive to bring out that second immortality. Then she's gonna get another 50% push, and that usually is going to bring her high enough to just come up to dispel and kill BBK. Festive Ida, she actually can also be used against BBK or any other buff-reliant units, like perhaps LRK. You build her with a lot of effectiveness, so she can land all these unbuffables and all these debuffs, especially if she's ripped off her stealth. So in some cases, against units like LRK where they really heavily rely on AoE, she can be very good. Okay, now Politis, both of them are just anti-cleave builds. This one is a damage build, and the other one is more of a degen like ER effectiveness build. So it depends on if the how the enemy is cleaving. So if I can probably wipe them out with just one AoE, then I can go for the damage one. If that's not appropriate, which in more cases it's not, so I will go with a degen one. Alright, Inheritor Amiki, she is actually really good into some aggro teams or even some cleave teams where they are all very squishy and they don't have what it takes to strip Amiki of her multiple immortalities. So in those cases, Amiki can usually solo the entire enemy team because of how much damage she can pack out, and it's really hard to strip her of her immortality if you build her with enough ER and the opponent isn't running high effectiveness openers like Solidus, etc. Right, Ran, same build, just cleave unit. I haven't been cleaving, you can see he's not fast. So yeah, I haven't drafted him. Biblis? Nope. Lua, she's my backup, like one of the backup openers in some cases where Solidus and Emalua are both not available and I still need an opener or something to sort of crowd control the opponent, then I can go with a Lua. Arya, I don't think I have been really drafting her much. She can be good into like fire teams, but then not a lot of people have been drafting fire teams anyway, so maybe once or twice into like a Janua or something, but no, she's not very common. Elena is just for anti-cleave. You want her 250 speed and a ton of ER, so this is good into units like Ran or something, AoE, and with this artifact and with this much push, like even if they land a stigma or something like CR reduction on you, you can still push and cut enough to take the turn and protect your team, and this usually works really well into those kind of cleaves, like even Barceria cleave. They have to AoE open and then you can push up with this speed and all that combat readiness. It's gonna send you all the way to the top. Right, Frida, I've never used. Lencia, I don't think I drafted her, but I mean, she can be like a injury dealer if you don't have like other choices available. And speaking of which, Loli Senya is coming out, so I guess you can try comboing her with Loli Senya, though I would think Mort might be a better choice with more HP. Laya, she is still one of the best or most flexible cleansers with the most utility in the game right now. She is the best in slot counter in my opinion against Emalua because I mean, like, you can use more to deny the counter attacks, but then your team is still gonna lose turn to the provoke. So the best way is to just use Laya to start everything off and take away all the provokes right away. Rimuru, I haven't been using him. This is an ER build, mainly to counter like aggro teams with green Lilias, but then oh, she's not meta anymore, so he's not used anymore. Albedo, I don't think I've been drafting her. She's like for much slower playstyles, which I play like a bit of like aggro standard, like slightly leaning more towards aggro. So no, I haven't been drafting that passively. Mort, I also have not been drafting a lot, surprisingly. I think he lacks damage, honestly, because my playstyle, it requires a bit more tempo, it requires a bit more damage, so I can close everything out more quickly. So in that case, stuff like RB, BBK, Asflan, like Fireflan, they are much better options than Mort, but he can be used in like normal standard play against especially counter-attackers, but I can't really think of many counter-attackers that are meta. Perhaps Amiki. Other than that, yeah, he's probably not as good as a lot of people think. Silvertide Christie just for ER teams. I don't run that, but I have it for a backup. Blooming Lidica, Cleave, okay, Celine. Okay, so this one, I actually switched her build up a little bit. I downgraded her gear, as you can see from last season, a bit less damage, but I've also changed her EE to the stun one because it gives her a bit more flexibility into teams that actually don't care about if you hit their highest stack unit or not. Like sometimes they draft like BBK or like an RB, so if you run the highest attack EE, it's not going to threaten them as much. Right, Gala, so I think she is still usable on a 5th or 4th pick slot against teams that are slow and like tanky. Like if they are tanking things up with like ML Senya, you can probably draft her, but not in an earlier pick. Okay, Ocean Breeze, I mean, she can be a counter to ML Lua, especially when Laya is not available, because she usually has enough ER to resist that provoke, and she can push herself up, especially with this artifact, and she can just cleanse your whole team right away and give that defense buff, which is not bad. But then again, smarter players are just gonna hold off their ML Lua S3 at first, and then they're gonna pick her off before they actually activate it. So she's usually not too tanky, so she is prone to getting picked off. Yeah, and her debuff capabilities is not bad too. You can't overlook that. So if they activate the S3 right away, you can definitely follow up with a lot of debuffs. But then again, it depends on who you're playing against. Alright, Conk, my other backup opener alongside Lua. So again, when Solidus and ML Lua, who are my two favorite or most commonly picked openers, they are not available, I will go for Conk. Okay, Lionheart. Well, this is the damage build, as you can see, like a ton of defense, a ton of crit damage, but there are just so many units that are really tanky, or they just bypass defense and they can like pick her off. So either of those type of units she's not good into, so I haven't been drafting her too much. Ambitious Tywin, okay, so this is a very tanky one. You can either build yours like mine, or you can go like faster to use with a Solidus at like maybe like 250 speed, a bit less HP of course. Then you can just use that for like crowd control and like more aggro teams. This one I built him like this because my damage dealers are actually really slow, so this is speed tuned. Bellion, Anti-Cleave, I wish I had another Albriz, but well, okay, Crimson Almond, again, this is too slow for me, the tempo. Okay, Empyrean Ilinev, I actually have been drafting her quite a bunch because she can actually deal a lot of damage if you build yours like mine. And I have Holy Sack on her, so that means it gives her more potential to stay on the field and deny defense penetration while packing in more damage. So this is very tanky, high damage. Of course, you're gonna need support if they go for debuffers. But then yeah, who's gonna fight alone with her, right? So you do have to draft like a cleanse or something that can support her well, okay? So don't go saying like, oh, you need 300 ER on this unit. You don't, okay? If you build her like that, well, I mean, it's not wrong, but she just has less utility, has less damage potential, and it's probably more anti-cleave instead of like flexible to use among standard play. Right, LRK, after his buff, he's actually really strong now. Like, not only does he stop knock and ML Roana, well, he also hits really hard, well, as she's always been, and he can tank, right? So with this artifact 3F, it's really good into a lot of cases where the enemy is not drafting really tanky, like even into like Fireflan. Because you can never hit Fireflan, right? But with this artifact, you can deal that additional damage even if you miss. And I've considered building him with more HP and less speed, as you can see on the screen right now. But I found out like this compared to like a higher speed build, in terms of damage, it only differs by probably like 500. But then you're losing a lot of like turn cycling, you're losing a lot of combat readiness by dropping 24 speed, right? So it's not worth it. So I prefer this build, and he works really well. Okay, Knuckle, not as commonly used as before. I mean, she can still be used in anti-cleave scenarios and sometimes in some standard plays, but I don't really draft her. It's just because there are so many counters to her and so many units that can just take her out really quickly, like even Armor Key, can really pierce through her quite easily. Unbound Knight, again, no, I don't draft Slow Knights. Okay, Savior Arden, never used. Specimen Sis, never used. This build on Spes is actually for Harsetti, like she can Abyssal Crown someone and then Spes can clean up, but it's unreliable. And I always pre-ban Harsetti. Okay, AOL, I mean, she's fallen off. She's just outshined by so many other debuffers and openers, etc., so you won't be seeing a lot of her. Newman Luna, I mean, this is a very bad build. I gave her really crappy gear just because I always pre-ban her in RTA, so I just slapped this on for Arena and Guild War, and oh, that's why it's low HP, low speed, a bunch of effectiveness, which you arguably don't really need. Now Sage Bao, just anti-cleave, you want her, him, high ER, 250 speed, so he can cut. Solitaria, I actually like my Solitaria slower and tankier because, I mean, her base speed is so low, it would take one of my best sets of gear in order to make her fast enough to be like a speed contest opener, right? So that's definitely not worth it. But if you just build her at like 260, 270 speed, with effectiveness, then you're losing out on a lot of bulk, right? So she can't be tanky at that speed, unless you have the gear to, then feel free. Yeah, but then if she's not tanky and she's only at that speed, usually you don't get the first turn, and if the opponent can get in a good combo, your Solitaria is as good as dead. So I'd rather stay slow and tanky so she can live on a bit longer and is able to focus a bit longer. Yeah, but that's just me, so that's my thought process behind this build. Now, Infinite Horizon Achilles, she's really good into debuffers that don't really control your units, like ML Luna, so they are not going to provoke you or strip your turn or anything, but then they pack a lot of debuffs, so you can use her to cleanse that out. Made Chloe, just ER team unit, I sort of experimented with that, but it's not a playstyle for me. Moon Bunny, this is a very standard, typical Moon Bunny build. Nothing much to say here. I sometimes draft her into what's the unit? Veronica, yeah, so she can protect your BBK from Veronicas. Alright, Ruel, well, I mean, she slows down the game a lot because she revives herself, and she can revive a teammate, she can apply the damage limit, etc. So she is actually a really strong single target heal. Ever since her buff, she's really good in tank down playstyles alongside other units that are tanky, for example BMH or ML Senya, etc. But then I don't play that style, but she can be really difficult to deal with in those kind of scenarios, especially if they are not drafting Bryceria. Okay, so Designer Lilibet, I actually picked her in my free like ML5 selection event. She is a very good cleanser because she can't be overwhelmed by debuffs, simply her passive is really good. And then another thing is actually that she can deal a lot of damage, so she is actually a bruiser unit. That's why I've been putting Golden Rose on her. In terms of stat line, you can just use mine as a reference. This is like one of the most typical standard build. Lone Crescent, ML Ken. These two units used to be the ultimate ML Landy counter, but then since ML Landy has fallen off and you can't really see her in LTA a lot, so these two units haven't been seeing much play. But if you need a reference build, these two are quite typical and good builds. Okay, Mediator Kirik, if you're not building him with a damage build, well, you're losing out. Compared to a like ER or effectiveness build, this is much more flexible because his S2 actually hits really hard, and he can bring a lot more to your team by just giving more supplementary damage as a secondary DPS while still being able to cleanse. Strays is just Strays. Right, compared to Strays, I would say Urban Shadowshoe is much better into tanky teams, because she allows you to not just like kill one, right? She allows you to apply injury to all the enemy units. By the way, this helmet is really cracked here. Yeah, so she self-buff speed and she cycles around really quickly, so you do want her to be fast, and she can ramp up or sort of like stack up that injury really fast through turn cycling. So if your opponent is drafting slow with units like BMH plus Empyrean Illinev plus Amalsenia, like those kind of really cheesy teams, you can definitely pick her to cycle that injury into their entire team. And then I have this like ER build to be used with Harsetti, where the speed is capped, so no speed, just ER. Yeah, but this is still an experiment in progress, so not sure if it's good. Abyssal Euphine. Okay, so no, this is just anti-cleave. I wouldn't use her as a main bruiser anymore, just because there are so many better options. But then in anti-cleave, she still stops combat readiness quite proficiently. Okay, Arbiter Vildred. So as you can see, my Arby is actually quite slow, right? But then he hits like a truck. I do have this degen build as well. This is for anti-cleave. You don't need speed for anti-cleave, okay? So talking about speed on Arby. So I do think that damage is much better than speed on this unit, because in higher levels, everyone builds their unit really tanky, right? So the support, the tanks, the healers, they're going to be very tanky. They're going to be very hard to kill, okay? So if you build an Arby with like, I don't know, like 240 speed, but a lot less damage, that is just not going to cut it. It's just not going to be enough to kill tankier units like Amalsenia, etc. Right? So what you're doing with this build is that you're gonna draft a lot of like openers and CR pushers alongside with him to support him well. So I usually go with like early pick Sliders or Emma Lua, and then you can follow up with like Alaya or Moon Bunny, etc. just to push him up, and then you can pack in that big punch. Okay, so as you can see here, I can go with like a high speed damage build, but what's the point in that? It's not killing anyone. Well, I mean, it can still hit decently hard, but it's not hard enough. It's not going to be enough to actually matter in some cases. In some cases, you just need that high damage to wipe their team out, right? Same case with BBK, which I will show you later. But okay, so just gonna go with this degen build here. This is a pretty typical degen RB build. You want him really tanky, you want him to be able to counter, so you need this artifact that I just showed you. You max out all the skills, of course, and then, well, you just pray that they're not gonna hit you with that 70% evasion after he revives, and, well, hopefully he wipes out the cleave. Okay, now BBK. You can see this is built in a similar manner as my damage RB. So again, you need damage that matters, okay? So this is pure damage with Destruction and Torrent set, and this can actually punch really hard. It's more relevant with BBK because her S1 can actually give her CR boost, right? So if you pair that with a Solidus who can dual attack with her, well, that is going to matter a lot and help her cycle her turns. So speed doesn't matter in those cases, but damage does, right? So you always need to have enough damage in order to cut through those tanky teams in higher leagues. Okay, moving on to openers, we have Hellion Lua. She's one of my favorite units to draft just because, oh, she's really, I mean, her animation is so cute. And she's really powerful, right? So these units that can like debuff the opponent team, like control, crowd control, while granting the entire team with some unique buffs, are always really strong. Like think Solidus, think Hellion Lua. So they can like crowd control the entire opponent team and make them lose a turn on turn 1, and then like even if they draft units like Design Lilibet, it's not gonna cleanse it off right away because Design Lilibet needs 50 fighting spirit, but if you S3 on Hellion Lua, it's only gonna give them 40, so you can still provoke something and make them hit your Hellion Lua, and you can counter, right? So I usually use her into cases where people try to counter my Fireflan with a Solitaria, so I would use Hellion Lua, provoke their entire team, and then make them hit her. Then, with this counterattack, Fireflan can still activate her artifact, get an attack buff, and get the CR push. And when my entire team gets pushed up, in that case, we can pick off the Solitaria before she can even move. In most of the cases, and that is going to help my Fireflan get her focus back. And yeah, again, as I said, Laia is the best in slot counter because of her artifact and her cleanse. And then we have Sea Phantom Politis. She is also one of my favorite openers to draft. Well, she's more like she's a bit different, as in when you would draft her compared to Hellion Lua. So if the opponent is going slow already, then you can probably emphasize on that weakness with Sea Phantom by pushing them back and giving them decreased speed. And then her dual attack on S1, as always, is really useful with DPS like BBK and Fireflan, which both can benefit from that like single target like S1. Also, like Sea Phantom doesn't really give a shit about Laia, unlike Hellion Lua. So, I mean, she's more like flexible into cleanses, while Hellion Lua, you can't really have too much cleanse on the opponent team because they can just nullify what Hellion Lua does. But for Sea Phantom, her dual attack and her turn cycling capability is better. Eternal Wanderer, just cleave unit, haven't been using him. And then we have Harsetti. She just disables speed, right? So I'm not really a big fan of Villager in RTA. I just find that like a whole different system that well, it's gonna make me rebuild all my units, which is annoying. So I just pre-ban her. Now, Requiem Roana, I mean, she is indeed a cleave unit, essentially, but she is also a utility unit who can actually be drafted with aggro playstyle or sometimes even standard. If you can guarantee yourself the first turn, like you look at the lineups and you're like, oh, they're not fast at all, and you can definitely get a first turn, and it seems like they are prone to a debuffer or like a skill reset, so that means they don't have units like LRK or Laia, then definitely you can just go with Requiem Roana as an additional crowd control unit and defense breaker. And well, in those cases you can actually find some use with her, but well, it's not gonna be very common. Spectre, I just never used are better DPS than her. Zeo, I mean, he's still the fastest unit in the game, so definitely have him built. Well, this build on mine is just the same cleave build from before, but even if you don't cleave, you can still use him as like an anti-cleave or anti-aggro, more accurately. So you can use him into openers or units that don't have stealth. For example, Conqueror Lilius or Green Lilius, they all don't have stealth, and if you can push them back, you can stop them from what they're gonna do. Okay, so for BMH, you just want him to be as tanky as possible on the counter set. Celestine is the best in slot in my opinion to provide some heal, especially if he strips on his S1, that double heal is going to be huge, okay? A bit of ER just to stop, like random debuffs here and there. Other than that, well, this is a very solid BMH build. I intentionally didn't build him with too high HP, just so that units like Green Lilius cannot one-shot him, and as you can see, a ton of defense, so it's still going to be enough just to make him to be able to survive long enough and be tanky enough. And of course, you're going to be drafting support units like other mitigation tanks or other healers like Ruel, etc. And finally, we have DDR. He's fallen off a lot ever since Schneel came out. So usually, if you pick him too early, it gives your opponent the chance to punish him with a Schneel or with a Dragon King Sharoon. And well, if they have both, then you're basically fucked. He can't do anything at all. And even if they only have one, it still really stops him from like working. So the only solution to that is to save him for last. So if on a 5th pick scenario you find the opponent team weak or prone to Venom or Control, then you can draft him. Otherwise, just don't draft him early or you will get punished really hard if your opponent knows what they're doing. Okay, so that wraps it up for this account review, and make sure you subscribe, and I guess I'll be seeing you later, hopefully.
Do my best.